Hello, wonderful people, and welcome aboard the good airship Hopium. I am your host and Captain Snappydude speaking, and as always, I hope you are having a wonderful day. So, today, I thought I'd do something I've wanted to do for a while, but I partially, I lack the confidence to do it, but I'm saying, fuck it, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it well. So, here we go. We're going to talk about Mozu. This might be a two-part video, so be sure to check back for the second part. The second part will be a gameplay commentary on basically how I play Mozu, how I address situations in both Clash and Rush, and just general gameplay specifics with more detailed examples of actual video gameplay. For this one, I'm just going to go through the general build that I use for Mozu and the one that I have the most effectiveness with. So, let's start with how do we level Mozu up at level 1? So, there's probably going to be a lot of different opinions about this if you go into the community, but I think there's only one simple answer in my opinion. Mozu is 100% based around her primary attack. I don't know any other argument you can make against that. Her primary attack is everything to Mozu. She doesn't really have another damage attack. The closest thing she has to that is a tractor beam. She is 100% about firing her primary attack. She is super easy to use in that sense, or at least to kind of understand the basics of. You need to hold down the right trigger or the left click on your mouse and shoot the shit out of people. That is 100% what she's about. And so I always say the first two levels need to get used on buffing your primary attack. So, how are we going to buff that primary attack? We have two options. We can go to the right side over here. I don't like this side nearly as much. It reduces cooldowns by 3 seconds up here. This one just pierces enemies. But how often is pierce really useful unless enemies are lined up? You know, and up here, 3 seconds is a decent amount, but I think there are better options. The massive shock is cool. It does a big chunk of damage, which is kind of nice. I did use this side for the longest time, but I think the superior side is over here. Other skills, when you use other skills, they buff your attack speed instantly. This is so good, and I'll explain it as we go along, but basically it makes all of your other skills infinitely more useful. Now, every single other skill that Mozu has not only does what it used to do, but it also gives you a boost to your basic attack skill, and your basic attack is everything. That means that, let's say, a tractor beam, which is something that has a very short range, if you have an enemy that, let's say, they're out of range of a tractor beam, but a tractor beam it's not on cooldown, you can use it, but you're not going to hit them because they're too far away, you can still use a tractor beam and get some kind of use out of it, even if you're not in range, and it will buff your attack speed and allow you to do more damage more quickly. And it gives you an alternate use for a tractor beam when you're out of range. And a lot of times you are going to be out of range for a tractor beam because Mozu plays at a much further range than most characters. So this is the side that I have been going with lately. It is a side I've been having a lot more fun with. So this is the side we're going to go on. This next one is probably going to be the most controversial out of the things I pick for Mozu, because there's two other things here. So we have other skills use buffs attacks speed more. So basically, this basically just does what the bottom one does. It just gives you an even better boost of speed. This magic shell, when you summon your vortex, you gain a deflection shield in front of you. Here's my thing. Magic shell is great. It's really good situationally. If you are facing a bunch of long-range DPS characters, Magic Shell is extremely useful. But if you are, let's say, fighting a team with 2 or 3 melee characters, there's 2 or 3 characters that Magic Shell isn't going to really do much of anything for. It does give you a 40% damage reduction from the front, but it is significantly less useful in that regard than I think the alternative, because there's one big problem with Magic Shell that kind of makes this 40% damage reduction kind of useless. First off, it doesn't last that long. I think it lasts as long as Vortex lasts, which isn't super long. The other problem with it is that it only lasts when you use Vortex. If you use any other skill, if you use Teleport, or you use a Tractor Beam, this Magic Shell is useless. It's not going to come up. It's not going to be there. You're only going to be able to use it when you're using Vortex. So that means there's going to be a very limited amount of time every match when this buff actually applies. And I know a lot of people like this buff. I've met a lot of good Mozu players who use this buff. I have had builds in the past that use this buff. But in my opinion, dimensional offense is the way to go. Boosting your attack speed even more is so essential, because again, it's every skill. This gives an alternate use to every skill and makes every skill better, because no matter what other skill you use, your primary attack is going to get a buff from it. And your primary attack is everything with Mozu. It's not just one skill that gives a speed boost, it's literally every skill. And that is fantastic, and I don't think you can pass it up. And Mozu firing at full speed is a damage machine. Next up, I think we have to go down to Mozu's focus ability. And the right side over here is very defensive based, and that sounds good on paper. Mozu is definitely a glass cannon. She does not have a lot of health. Buffing her defense sounds really good on paper, but here's the thing. She is a glass cannon, and therefore she is very long ranged. Trying to use her in a close range capacity is what's going to get you killed. If you are playing Mozu properly, you are typically far enough back that defense is slightly less important. The biggest thing to Mozu's defense isn't how much damage reduction she has, it's how you position Mozu. Where you are playing from is everything for Mozu's defense. If you don't want to take damage as Mozu, then don't put yourself in an angle where you're going to take damage from long-range attackers, and stay far enough back from the close-range attackers. That is the key to playing Mozu and not dying. It has very little to do with damage reduction. That's not going to help you nearly as much. It's just learning positioning and staying out of range and firing on people that are already focused on one of your teammates so that they're not focused on you. Things like that are going to go so much further than any damage reduction is probably ever going to do. So therefore, we're going to go over here. And we're going to go with this. This increases damage and damage reduction, which is cool. We still get that damage reduction, but we also get a 10% damage boost that lasts until we die, which is really useful. It's really easy to build up Mozu's focus. Just build it up, use it one time, and there you go. You have a 10% damage boost until you die. That's super good. This is a little bit harder. 25% focus gain or 100% critical chance with Death Ray. Either is pretty decent. Mozu already gains focus really fast, so I don't worry that much about the focus gain one. What I do think here is really useful is 100% critical chance. This applies for this top bonus. You have to use you don't gain the 25% focus gain till death until you use the ability, and you do gain a 15% focus gain, which is cool, but the 25% bonus you don't gain until you've used the ability at least one time. That means that if you get into a situation where you're dying a lot, let's say like a really hard match that is really one-sided, this becomes a lot less useful because now it's just a 15% game bonus instead of a 25% game bonus. And anytime you die, you lose that 25% gain. That's kind of why I lean towards the 100% critical chance, because you already get this move. Mozu's focus you will probably use 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a match sometimes. Like, it is very easy to gain Mozu's focus ability. It's super easy, and just making it so that every time, even the first time, is a 100% critical chance is super, super, super useful. So that is the second upgrade we're going to go for this. And now we're going to go to our 5th pick of the day. My 5th pick is for Dimension Door. And again, some of these things people are probably going to tell you, oh, that's Snappy's pick in the wrong order. I don't think I am. As somebody who plays Mozu a shit ton, Vortex is pretty useful. It's an extremely powerful defensive ability that protects you from a lot of damage. But again, it's very situational. It's only going to protect you from long-range enemies. Close-range enemies are just going to run past it. So there's 50% of the character roster that is just... Vortex is just not going to be useful against. What is always going to be useful 100% of the time when you are taking damage, whether it's from close range or far range, is Mozu's Dimension Door. Dimension Door is probably Mozu's second best ability, and it's an amazing ability. It lets her teleport, and she can teleport so fucking far away. She can get out of so many situations and so many pickles. It is really the key to her defense. If you position well, even if somebody moves and starts to damage you and gets in a position where they can damage you, you are still going to be able to get away because of Dimension Door. It is so good. So there's two sides of this. You have the Mozu support side. This side buffs armor. It can give deflection. It can give speed boost. This stuff is really, really cool if you're playing really well with a team. And maybe it's because I don't play in a lot of squads that I just don't find this side that useful. Here's the thing. You're going to notice a little thing on here that says, gives armor to allies within 3 meters of the destination. The destination. The destination. That means you have to teleport in next to allies to give them these boosts. Here's the thing. Playing Mozu like this is very, very fucking risky. Using Mozu's teleport to teleport into fights is not something I would ever recommend a beginner do, and it is definitely something that even at high level play is very, very risky. You are putting Mozu in a situation where Mozu is closer to enemies, and remember, Mozu's a glass cannon, and not only is Mozu closer to enemies, but Mozu now does not have a way to escape those enemies. Mozu has a lot of stamina. Mozu can run away pretty easy, but Mozu does not have a lot of health. If those enemies have any kind of long-range abilities or any kind of status effects, you will probably die trying to run away without Dimension Door. So you're going to teleport in, lose your Dimension Door. Yeah, your allies will be slightly buffed, but there's a good chance you are going to take damage, or at least a much higher chance you are going to take damage that is probably going to get you fucking killed. So, in my opinion, I don't like this side. If it was buff enemies at whatever the launch location was, where you left from, that would be fine with me. But when it's the destination location, it means you're going to have to teleport in closer to fights. I just don't like that. I just don't. It's just too risky for Mozu. Mozu needs to be played further back. That is where her strengths lie. Yours are just screwing up positioning so much and just taking unnecessary risks to give very minor buffs to allies. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, when you have the other side that is so much better. This side restores 15 stamina when you use Dimension Door. That means if you sprint and then you use Dimension Door, you will regain some of the stamina that you lost when sprinting. This means you can kind of renew your sprint at least a little bit when you use this. Reduces cooldown of other skills by 7 seconds. That is huge. That is huge. That is a huge cooldown to other skills. So that means even if you decide to use this offensively, let's say you kind of do what I said just to not do. Let's say you're at the point where you're kind of getting a little bit better with Mozu, and you do want to teleport into the fight. This works both ways. A, it's going to give you stamina to run away, but B, it is also going to cool down your other skills so that you can use them for offense. And that is super, super, super awesome, because then you're covering both sides, offense, defense. I love temporal discontinuity. Now, let's go up here. Let's see what we got. We got damage. Nearby enemies with 250 damage as long as they're within 1.8 meters of either the location you leave from or the location you teleport to. There's two problems with this. One, if an enemy is very close to you and you teleport away, it's probably going to be a melee character. If it's a tank, 250 damage, it's a lot, but it's probably not going to kill them or anything. It might deter them a little bit. If it's a long-range character, they're not going to be near you, meaning every time you teleport, you're basically wasting this ability. It's not going to do any damage to the enemy team. And if it's 250 damage at the location you're landing in, again, that's just bad positioning. Mozu shouldn't be getting that close to people. If you're teleporting up close to people with Mozu, it's just a mistake, and you're just, yeah, you'll do 250 damage, like, right out the gate or whatever, but it's just a mistake. Like, just so much of the roster can just chew through Mozu in about 2 seconds. It's just not worth it to try to get 250 damage off just to damage somebody and you know, try to do a close range fight. That's not Mozu's thing. It just feels like this upgrade is just encouraging bad play and bad positioning with Mozu when she should be played further back. This buff, open to offense, this is a fucking amazing buff. A 25% attack damage for 5 seconds. That is a huge boost to basic attack, and that is a huge amount of time. Remember the other side, we were talking about buffs for about 3 seconds? This is a 5-second buff. That is almost twice as long as those other buffs. And it is a 25% buff. It is so good. This, I will admit, the one downfall to this is it is probably one of the hardest things to use, to get used to using as a new player. But here's the thing. Just because you have to teleport to activate this buff does not mean that you have to teleport to the enemy. You can teleport to a piece of cover where you can get a sight line on the enemy, and then you get this 25% buff. Oh, but wait! Snappy told me about something else earlier. What was it? The number one thing about Mozu. Her basic attack. Remember when we picked those upgrades for level 1 and level 2? That anytime you use a skill, Mozu's speed jumps up? Oh yeah, that applies too. So if you teleport to the position you were going to shoot the enemy from anyway, which is pretty far away, now you get a 25% damage buff, and you get that huge speed buff. Now your basic attack is faster, and every shot does more damage on top of it. You can drop some crazy damage with this buff. You just have to remember to use it to position yourself. You don't want to use it to get in close. This is teleport to a spot with cover and then fire on the enemy. That's what this buff is. It is not an invitation to jump in close to people. But man, this buff, you can use this buff to get some serious damage. Just make sure that you're far enough back and in a good enough position that you will be able to stay in that position at least long enough for Dimensional Door to cool down. Because that is the trickiest thing with this one is Even I, at times, I want to teleport in, and if I'm not careful, the enemy will push in on me before Dimension Door cools down, and then I end up in a bad position where I cannot Dimension Door back out. So, a lot of times I'll use this for very short range. Like, I'll teleport like 2 feet. Like, I'll be far enough back behind our frontline characters, and I'll just teleport a couple of feet just to get the boost. That way I can deal out some insane damage. This stacked with the first 2 levels of buff we gave to Mozu is so amazing. It's fucking great. Now we're going to go down and we're going to pick a talent. There are 2 talents on Mozu that I really like. One is Perfect Storm. This gains 100% critical chance during Clash. That's really good. And it makes your Arcane Vortex bigger. I love Arcane Vortex. It's a great skill. If it wasn't for teleport being so useful, I would say Arcane Vortex is probably my next favorite skill on Mozu. But the problem is that Mozu is so focused on her primary attack that the only other thing that really matters is when that situation turns on you, you need to be able to get out, which is teleport, which is Dimension Door. So Arcane Vortex falls a little bit down the level of Mozu importance. I love this skill. This is a skill I use about 50% of the time I will put this build on. It's great. The 100% critical chance is fucking phenomenal. The larger vortex is great. It gives you a little bit more coverage to hide behind. But I recommend this for somebody who's been playing Mozu for a little bit, because positioning Arcane Vortex sometimes is a little tricky. You got to be careful with where you put it. It's also easy to forget about in the midst of holding down the right trigger sometimes. The one I recommend to new players more than anything else is the Dimension Door range increase down here. Added dimension. It increases the range of Dimensional Door. That means you can teleport further, which is great. Mozu's teleport goes pretty far anyway, but when you add added dimension to that, you can go super far. Sometimes with the normal teleport, you won't quite get out of danger, and like a long-range character might be able to snipe you still, or if you run out of stamina, somebody might be able to catch up to you and still kill you. But with this, you're probably far enough out of combat that 99% of the time, nobody's probably going to catch up to you and kill you. As long as you teleport to a good position, as long as you kind of, once you learn to use it, this is so much more useful for new players, because Dimension Door is how you're going to get in and out of situations. Being able to go further is going to make it so much easier for you to escape, especially when you're new and you're not used to her amount of stamina and you're not used to where to teleport. You might not notice little tricky ledges you can teleport off, because the thing is, when you teleport, if they see where you end up, they're going to probably try to chase you down. So as you get better with it, you'll learn, like, oh, I should teleport behind that or over that ledge. And until you start to look at the map differently, the added range really does help you, because even if they still can see you, if you're far enough away, they're probably still going to just back off and leave you alone. So that is great. During Clash, if you have above 50% health, this reduces cooldown on Dimension Door by 6 seconds. Dimension Door has like a 15-second cooldown, so to take it down by 6 seconds is over a third of the cooldown just gone. This is a great upgrade. I even use it all the time. Like I said, I switch between this and Perfect Storm, and it's fantastic. So this is the one we're going to pick for this. This is the one that I've mostly been using with this build. Now on to Arcane Vortex. So, this is Arcane Vortex. You put up a spinning shield of energy in front of Mozu. It deflects shots of incoming enemy fire. So on the side, we have, this will pull enemies closer to the vortex and interrupt their attacks. This is great, especially if you're playing as a team. It gives you a way to interrupt enemies with Mozu, which is super cool. And it pulls enemies into the vortex, which is great. If you want to pull enemies off of somebody, it kind of gives another use to Arcane Vortex. This is a very solid choice. Out of all Mozu's moves, Arcane Vortex has the most complicated choice path, in my opinion, as for which side is better. This side can be very good situationally, and especially if you're playing with a team where you can kind of, you want to help out your team more. Confusion will daze enemies that are exiting the vortex. So if they get sucked in, they get interrupted, and then they get dazed. That's pretty useful. They're only dazed for a second, but between that and the interrupt, it can be pretty damn useful. It adds up. The other thing is, basic attacks hit on enemies inside the vortex gives plus 20% basic attack damage for 5 seconds. This can be super great if you stack with that Dimensional Door buff. You Dimensional Door, then you drop Arcane Vortex on somebody, they get sucked into it, and you pop them with your basic attack. This can be huge. It can stack up huge bonuses. At that point, you're talking like 45% damage boost, plus the speed boost we got from levels 1 and 2 onto the enemies that are in that vortex. That's great. The one reason I don't like this is it's enemies inside the vortex. If it was enemies hit by the vortex for so many seconds, I would be okay with that. But the vortex, even though you can make it bigger, it's still never very big. It is not very hard for an enemy to walk outside of the vortex. They get pulled in, and then they just walk away. So I really struggle with this one because even if you're using it, the enemies probably aren't going to get pulled in, and or they aren't going to be in there very long, and you're just not going to get a lot of use out of that 20%, as big as that bonus is. But it does stack up, and it is kind of cool to use. I think the daze one might be slightly more useful, especially, like I said, if you're running team comps and you just want to kind of have that ability to kind of aid your team. It gives you another way to use Arcane Vortex, and I'm pretty okay with that. On the other side, we have increases vortex duration and range. This means you can lay it out further away from you, and the duration of it lasts longer, which is super cool. The top two ones, buffs movement speed of allies who run through Arcane Vortex. This is pretty cool. It gives you a way to buff allies that doesn't require you teleporting into the middle of a fight. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. There's so many good choices in Arcane Vortex. There really is. And a 30% boost to speed is huge. It's huge. It also would give you another way to use Arcane Vortex if you're running away. You might be able to drop it in front of you. The problem is Arcane Vortex kind of has a clunky casting animation that slows you down, and it would be kind of hard to use while running away. But if this during certain situations, you might be able to use it, and the speed boost would be awesome. Also, this you can use it for like pushing in during a rampage and things like that. It gives you any other way to use the ability. Anytime you can give an ability another purpose, make it a little bit more of a Swiss Army knife, I'm totally down for that. This does that. Pretty much all the skills in Arcane Vortex do that, and I'm down for that. And then finally we have Reflects Enemy Projectile. So Reflect is different than Deflect. Deflect just sends the enemy long-range attacks flying in any direction. Reflect shoots it right back at them, and basically if they shoot the vortex, they end up damaging themselves. I love this. I'm going to be honest, this is the route that I go. I go Temporal Dilation to increase the duration and range at which I can put the vortex down. To me, this is just the one that makes the most sense. It gives me more versatility with where I can put the barrier down, and how long it stays out is boosted, which means if I'm using it to defend myself or an ally to keep shots off of us, I have it's out longer. It's doing more, basically. And that's super good. That's awesome that it's out a little bit longer. And the fact that it can go further means I can stand farther back And let's say I have an enemy in front of me who's trying to capture some energy. But I don't want to move up closer, because if I get up next to them, I might start taking damage. So, but there's somebody on the other side of them, and the person's shooting them. Well, now I can stay back in cover. I can drop that barrier between me and my ally. I can put it just past my ally because of that extended range, and I can protect my ally. And that's great. That you can reach out past your ally and do that without having to leave cover. That's great. I love this upgrade. And now we're going to go with Reflect Projectile. I love this upgrade. Normally, after you start using this the first couple times, once you have this upgrade, the enemy will catch on to it and they will stop shooting the vortex. But that also means they're going to stop shooting in general, right? It reflects the projectiles back at them and it hurts them, but it means they're going to be extra cautious. A lot of times you have people that will just shoot at the barrier until it drops. That way, immediately when it drops, they're doing damage to you on the other side. This kind of prevents that, because they don't want to take damage themselves, so they just stop shooting, which means once the barrier drops, there's still going to be another second or two before they react and start shooting you again, and that's super useful. It also means that occasionally they're going to shoot it on accident. They're not going to realize you're throwing it up. They're not going to stop shooting in time, and they're going to take a little bit of damage from themselves, and it's chef's kiss. It's fucking amazing. I love Reflect. It's so great. It's so much fun. I love it. This is the upgrade path I use for Arcane Vortex. But like I said, situationally, this is probably the one where I will give you the most wiggle room in what to use. But this is the third most useful skill on Mozu. You're either going to be shooting with your primary attack, teleporting away, and the third thing you're probably going to be doing the most is using Arcane Vortex to protect yourself or block off enemy fire from hitting your allies. This is definitely the third most important skill on Mozu. Finally, we have a Tractor Beam. A Tractor Beam is the move I just don't care about a Tractor Beam nearly as... I know some people really like a Tractor Beam. I've met Mozu players who just love this skill. I think it's okay. It's okay. So a Tractor Beam in its normal state, you have to stop firing your primary attack. We know how big I am on that primary attack. I think that is everything with Mozu. You have to stop firing your primary attack to use this in its normal state. And I think that is horse shit. I think that is the stupidest thing in the world. And I just do not care for it at all. But we're going to get into that. So, let's talk about the right side first. We have this. This cancels an enemy attack. It cancels. Interrupts. Pretty basic. This upgrade cripples enemies, negative 40% movement speed for 3 seconds. This one weakens enemy attacks, negative 25 damage for 3 seconds. The problem with this is that a Tractor Beam has a very short range. You can interrupt an enemy attack, but to do it, you're going to basically have to be facing the enemy, and you're going to have to be within like 2 feet of them. And by the time you finish using a Tractor Beam, the minute you stop, they're just going to attack you and kill you, especially if they're a close-range character. This isn't going to do shit. The only time this is going to come in handy on this side, in my opinion, is if you're playing with another teammate. Like, let's say you're playing with a Taito who's on your stream all the time, and he's a really good player, and you're close to him. I don't think you should be, but you are close to him, and he is in a fight with another character. You can use this to help interrupt the other character so that he gets a couple more seconds of uninterrupted damage. It's really great in that very specific team play situation. In any other time, when you're far enough, when you're super far away, this is not going to be handy. Even if somebody charges you, like I said, you have to face them, and it only lasts as long as you're shooting it. It doesn't last any longer. So the minute you stop it, they're just going to attack you anyway. It basically just momentarily pauses your death. I hate this side. Same with the cripple. Yeah, they'll be slowed for 4 seconds. You might be able to run away, but I just don't. I've used it. I used to use it off and on. They just have to get way too close. The range on a Tractor Beam is so short that, like, By the time they're within range of it, 40% movement speed really doesn't matter most of the time. A lot of the melee characters have some kind of move to cover that distance, whether it's Wu's lunges or his tongue or Ramsey's whip blade. Like, there's so much stuff that, like, I just don't think the cripple helps that much. And a lot of this side is really dependent on, is best if you're working with somebody really closely who's like a melee character or another teammate. I just don't find, when we talk about situations in the game, we're talking about a mixture of sometimes you're playing as a team, and sometimes even when you're playing with a team, you're going to end up in solo situations. Your team's going to die. You're just going to make a bad call on movement and end up in a place where you're alone. Shit happens, and picking this upgrade tree just is in my opinion, it is just not great for solo play. I just don't like this side at all, and I don't want to keep going on about it. So let's go over to the other side. Over here we have the best upgrade for a tractor beam. This allows you to fire a tractor beam while you are firing your primary attack. Primary attack is everything on Mozu. I'm gonna keep saying that, but it is. Oh, and remember those first 2 levels again? We're coming back to that. You fire a tractor beam without stopping your primary attack? Oh, shit, your primary attack just got boosted. Oh, even if the enemy is out of range because a tractor beam's range is dog shit and it's super short, even if the enemy is halfway across the map, you still get that speed boost. So now you're still firing faster and doing more damage. Oh, holy shit, Snappy, that's such a great idea. You can use this attack even if you can't hit the enemy with it, you're still going to get a bonus from it. And your attack damage is still going to go up because you're still going to be doing damage faster than before, and it's going to be amazing. I'm just saying. And all of that with uninterrupted fire, because you didn't have to stop using your primary attack to use some half-baked status effect like the other side of this skill tree. I'm just saying. I have very strong opinions about a tractor beam. So this we have deals 200% damage to enemies below 33% health. That's pretty damn good. 200% damage is a lot. Granted, a tractor beam's damage is 15, so 200% is like 60 damage, but that's still pretty good damage. It's an extra 60 damage that you don't have to stop firing your primary attack to use, so it's basically like throwing in an extra 60 damage into your primary attack. As long as they're below 33% health, this is a great little boost to try to push you over the finish line. If enemies are in close enough to take it, and they're low on health, this is a great little boost to try to push them just that little bit closer to the soft, sweet edge of death. Next up, we have on kill resets beam duration to 5 seconds. This is great, but I always struggle to recommend moves that say on kill, because here's the thing. Games be crazy, y'all. Games be crazy. Depending on getting kills is so insane. There are games where I do fantastic. I've had games where I get like over 100k damage in Clash, and oh no, my phone alarm is going off. I'm gonna leave that in here, not edit it out. Anyway, on kill means that there are games where I get like 100k damage in Clash, and guess what? I get hardly any kills. I just don't find this that if the time to kill in Gigantic was lower, I would probably say this would be a stronger option. But considering it is so reliant on kills, and sometimes with Mozu doesn't have a lot of burst damage. She can do damage crazy fast. She can do a ton of damage, but a lot of times it is a lot more spread out than some other characters, which means a lot of times kill confirmation is going to come from other characters. For example, when I'm playing on stream with a Taito who comes to my stream all the time and is an amazing player, a lot of times when I play with him, I end up getting only assists. I'll get crazy damage. I'll get a shit ton of assists. I have a game posted on this channel where I have 31 assists on Rush from playing with that character because the Taito had more burst damage, so a lot of times he was coming in and getting the kill confirms on characters that I had softened up with Mozu. Depending on getting kills is just the craziest thing, and it is way too random to trust to have an upgrade that is 100% reliant on that, even if it is a pretty solid upgrade like this. It is a great, like, 5 seconds is awesome, but it is just too reliant on something that is way too random for me to ever recommend. This damage buff is like I said, it's pretty solid. It means if somebody rushes in close and you've already kind of softened them up, it gives you an extra 60 damage that you can just bump over the edge. And like I said, this whole side is just the best way to go with a tractor beam, because it means you can boost your speed, and then if they, from a long range, and if for some reason somebody does run in close, you can not only boost your speed, but you can also bump an extra 60 damage on there. It is the solid way to go. And that, folks, is how Snappydude plays Mozu. And in the next video, man, I'm going to pick one of my best Mozu matches. I don't know what the fuck that's going to be yet. And I'm going to walk you through how I play, where my thoughts are, what my positioning was through the whole match. And I'm going to show you guys, like, this is how I play Mozu. But for now, this is how I upgrade Mozu. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope maybe you found some of my dumb jokes funny. And I hope some of you found some of my dumb jokes offensive. And until next time, I hope you continue to have a great day. From your captain aboard the good airship Hopium, this is Snappydude, and I'm out, y'all. Bye!